Washington, D.C. has a great personality. Yeah, which is to say, I always thought I could do better. After living here the bulk of a decade, I still could not commit to anything or anyone because I didn't want anything getting in the way of my dream. And my dream was to ditch my NGO job and life and just start traveling the world and see where that could take me. And so in 2010, I quit my job and I bought the requisite one-way ticket to India. And I just started drifting, town to town, country to country. And after about 9 months in a dozen countries, I made it to visit some friends in the Republic of Georgia. And that was where I first met Claire. She was a British aid worker, about 8 years younger than me, and she was cute, carefree, and seemed really adventurous. But that was about all I got to know of her before I scuttled off to the next country. But then, just a few months later, we bumped into each other on a 6-square-mile island in Indonesia. I am not someone who generally believes in fate, but I believe strongly in great backstories of how couples met. Unfortunately, she was there with her boyfriend. Fortunately, he got really sick one night. So she came over to my bungalow, we drank some whiskey, and we spent a good chunk of the evening just running around and exploring the island. And at one point, we found this little thatch-roofed abandoned bar, and she hopped right over the bar, and she was looking around, and she saw something on a shelf that caught her fancy, and she grabbed it and said, "I cannot believe they have the one thing that I forgot to pack, a feather duster." I adored her silliness. And after that night, she was constantly in my daydreams as I traveled. And so I was pretty excited a few months later when one of our mutual friends emailed to say that Claire was now single and had just moved to Afghanistan. Yeah, I'm the only one who thinks this is good news. But I was in Central Asia at the time, and so I spent like an hour at my computer crafting the most off-the-cuff, super cash email that I could. Like, "Hey Claire, M dash. Heard you're in Afghanistan, cool. Any interest in going hiking and camping with me next month in Tajikistan?" And she quickly responded saying, "I will be there with bells on." Bells are good. I meet her at the airport, and I feel like I'm picking her up for prom. And we go to the National Museum of Musical Instruments and Funny Hats, where we stage photographs that we think would make good album covers. And then we drive several hours out to the mountains, hike up a couple thousand feet, and then put up my little 2-person tent. And as soon as we do, it starts pouring rain. So we're locked down in that tent all night, like a little one-act play. We're playing cards, and we're curled up in our sleeping bag, passing back and forth a disposable water bottle of vodka. And I love just listening to her get excited about all the things she wants to plan. And she says things like, "I really want to do that thing where you get some of your friends and a GPS device, and you've got to find some random object someone has hidden at totally arbitrary coordinates." What do they call that? G-spotting. Yeah, it's geocaching, but either way, I was in. As she took the last swig of vodka, I know that's my cue to go in and make my move, but I can't. I'm too intimidated. The best I can do is ask this horribly academic question of, "Would it be completely absurd if I kissed you right now?" And she almost blew vodka out her nose. She laughed so hard. And then she said, "Not at all." And so we kissed, and then we spent that night trying to cuddle up with each other awkwardly in separate sleeping bags, like a couple of mermaids in straitjackets trying to get cozy with each other. And a few days later, I put on a plane back to Afghanistan. But I was smitten, like I could not get her out of my head, and I really think I would have just shown up on her doorstep like a desperate little puppy dog, but for the fact that her doorstep is surrounded by barbed wire and Taliban. But we met up a month later for a similar trip, hiking up the side of a glacier, and somehow it was even better than the first. And on one of the very last days, we're walking beside an alpine lake, hand in hand. The sun's going down over the mountains, and the beach is glistening with broken glass and used syringes. And I stop abruptly, and I say, I know this is completely ridiculous. We barely know each other, but I am head over heels in love with you. And she laughs, she squeezes my hand, and she kisses me hard. And then we continue walking in the sand. And eventually she does tell me that she feels the same, like 3 days later by email from Afghanistan, but I'll take it. For our next trip, we meet up in Turkey, and this becomes our pattern. And at this point, my life is almost exactly the way that I imagined it would be. But still, after we're dating for maybe 6 months, I decide to move back to the States, back to DC, because I've been on the road for over 2 years now, and I kind of want to just hang out with my family and friends, and I'm kind of sick of restarting my life every few days. So I get back to DC, and the first week I'm back, Claire comes to visit, she meets my parents, and we start laying the groundwork for her to move in with me once I get an apartment and get settled in 6 months to a year, but we're just getting started. And then I get the apartment, and we buy 3 things together: a bed, a frying pan, and a spatula. Yeah, it's serious. But after a month or 2 months go by, it's starting to become clear, our video chats reveal just how different our lives are becoming. And she'll tell me about something exciting, about how she just got back from an R&R trip in Dubai. They were skiing indoors and on the beach all day, met these crazy guys, got pissed drunk, and had a blast. And I tell her about the things I'm excited about, which are Josh and Sasha are buying a house. And my mom's having knee surgery next week. She's really worried how it's going to affect ski season. I can feel her slipping away. And I'm worried that my boring life is what's poisoning our chemistry. So we plan a couple more trips overseas. We're going to do a week in India on the beach for my birthday. And then a few weeks after that, we're going to her best friend's wedding in England when I'm going to meet her parents. India cannot come soon enough for me. And when I get to New Delhi Airport and I see her come through customs, all I see is that beautiful backpacker that I fell in love with. And then she sees me, and there's a look in her eyes that I can only compare to someone who has just seen a hired driver holding a sign with her name on it. And she kisses me, but it feels like it's almost out of obligation. The next few days, we're just kind of going through the motions, and each morning we go for a run on the beach, but when we get to the water, I go one way and she goes the other. And the symbolism is not lost on me as I watch my girlfriend literally run away from me. So I sit her down on the bed one night and I say, "Is it just me, or is there a lot of distance here?" And she says pretty casually, "I don't feel close to you at all." I nod my head, trying to hide that fact that I've just been gutted. And the next 24 hours are excruciating. And when we get back that next night, after a few drinks, we climb into bed, and I'm thinking, it's do or die time. It's Hail Mary time. There's got to be a way to save this relationship, and I need to be bold. We need to merge our lives together. And so I'm rehearsing in my head the 4 words that I never thought I was ever going to say to a woman. And then out of my mouth, they just come. Let's move to Yemen. She had been offered a job there, and it was a big step backwards career-wise, but I was convinced that I could find work there too, as a photographer or with an NGO or Al-Qaeda. She didn't respond. She waited out the moment in silence. And a few days later, we're at yet another airport, and I'm trying to improv some kind of profound Shakespearean farewell, and I get about as far as, "I will always be grateful," when she cuts me off and says, "Keith, this isn't goodbye. We'll be in touch. We can always try again in 6 months or a year if we want. It's not a big deal." And the whole flight home, I'm just trying to figure out what the fuck just happened. And when I get back to DC, the town I know with the people I love, all I can think about is, I've still got this non-refundable plane ticket to England. And you know what? I'm going to use it. I'm going to go trek across the Scottish Highlands because I have a message that I want to make sure is crystal clear to the world. And by the world, I do mean Claire and Facebook. I'm doing fucking great. I'm doing so good. I am doing fucking fantastic. And as my flight date is getting closer, something else is there to consider, and that's that Claire's flight arrives 2 hours after mine. I could show her in person that I'm doing fine. And maybe we'd get to talking, and maybe it would be different, and she'd invite me to the wedding, and we'd have a great time. Everybody would love me. We'd move to Yemen and live happily ever after. I mean, that's an old story. The morning of my flight, I'm sitting at Dulles Airport, trying to look over guidebooks and maps, and I can't focus for more than a few seconds at a time because I am freaking out. Because I don't want to be alone traveling right now. I don't want to see Claire. And I'm not sure there are words in the English language for how I feel about moving to Yemen right now. I just got back. I want to go to happy hours with the friends I love, whose lives I have been absent from for over 2 years. I want to help people move. I want to listen to my mother bitch about the neighbors raising chickens in the front yard. My flight starts to board. I grab my little backpack and my camera bag, and I get on the bus right back into Washington. And of the dozens of times that I have arrived into this city by plane, train, car, bus, and a bicycle, I have never felt more like I was coming home.